Look at the adjective. Play.
And I have half the brain that you do. I told you. Oh, God.
Now is the franchise going to take the Viagra?
Gonna put some butts in the seat.
Hello there, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode number 84 of Because WCW, the podcast where the big boys play. My name is the Twisted Genius Dean Ayers, and I'm joined as ever by sports journalist and Hooked on Wrestling features editor Liam Happ. Good evening to you, Liam. How are you doing?
Well, Dean, I'm doing fine, but the most important question is, how are you doing?
Well, I suppose I also should say a belated Happy New Year to you. Yes, we have had do you realise something always seems to go wrong around the turn of the year for us? Yep. December, January we had 2 years of your laptop dying on its arse, and your laptop was fine this year, and we said, well, what's going to go wrong this year? And I basically the week before, the week of Christmas, just had a bit of a nothing much, just a bit of a what felt like a little cold, and I was thinking, well, just to be on the safe side, because I was going into my office at work, because our office was open for certain things, which, I thought I'll just be on the safe side. I'll get a test. It'll be negative, but at least it puts my mind at rest that it's nothing to worry about. And then at 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve, I got a text message from the NHS track and trace saying that my result had come back as positive. And then my other half then went for a test, and I think her result came back on Boxing Day. So my Christmas morning was actually spent filling in the NHS track and trace website, where you give all your details, and then you basically give the details of people that you've been in close contact with. So I was absolutely racked with guilt, because basically 2 people that I work with and 2 people that I am friends with, that I'd been out to a local football match with a few days previous, had a notification from the NHS on Christmas morning to tell them that they had to self-isolate for 10 days, which was great. Yeah. So, but I mean, that whole system is pretty much useless anyway, simply because you have to put all the information in. So, like, I went to I'd gone to my local snooker club. I don't know the names and telephone numbers of the people there, so I just couldn't list them. So it's not hugely effective. But I did get 2 phone calls from the NHS during my self-isolation period to check that I was at home, which I was. But I mean, again, it's something that I guess if you didn't want to be at home, you could just tell them that you are when you're not. But yeah, being a babyface, I played by the rules. Actually, what am I talking about? I'm a heel. I was going
to say,
what the hell was I doing? Playing by the rules. I've let everybody down.
You should have been like, oh, what do you mean there's a sound of a train in the background? Oh, that's just the TV. Yeah, I'm at home. Don't you worry.
Yeah. But the thing that, I mean, it's been well, this is the 5th week now that I've had symptoms. It kind of got worse and worse up to about the end of the year, and then it started to get gradually better. But the worst thing, I've still got, as you may know from reading the Wrestling Observer, I have still got a bit of a cough, not too bad. Definitely this week it is subsided a bit, but the worst thing of all is the energy levels or lack thereof. Absolutely, I'm just getting absolutely wiped out, and that has been getting better, and I have been sort of increasing things like going for walks every day and increasing the length I'm going for them, and I'm now doing things like cooking dinner, which didn't sound like much, but it's quite an achievement for where I was a few weeks ago. But I can honestly say, mate, that this is like nothing I've ever had before. Um, in the first few days, I thought, oh, it's just a bit like a flu or a cold, and then it ramps up and up and up, and I mean, I was never in a position where I couldn't breathe. I was in a position where I could tell that my breathing was, 50, 60% capacity. But, I didn't need to go to the hospital or anything like that. But yeah, you can tell and you can see how people pass away from this illness if they're in a weakened state. There has been a guy on the British wrestling scene, Matt Lomax, that was hospitalised, and he came home. I think it was last weekend after a while in hospital. It has really, really affected people. So I was also going to say, if I sound a little bit less energetic than usual, if I have to stop for a cough, then that's why. But yeah, it's been a very stressful few weeks, basically.
Which compels me to add at the very end of that, to anyone who needs to hear this listening to the podcast, wear a fucking mask.
Not the Rey Mysterio type mask,
Or, I mean,
because
wear
that's
both.
got a hole for your mouth.
Yeah, wear
Yeah,
both if you want, if that's the way you're inclined. But little things that are a minor inconvenience. Trust me, I'll say this firsthand. Running a home school at the same time as carrying out work and doing other projects. I've got a wife upstairs trying to do her very high stress job. Trust me, we're all inconvenienced. But we'd
mm.
rather not all be inconvenienced slash dead for the next 2 years.
Yes. I read a very good quote from someone today, which said, the reason that we're doing what we're doing and making the sacrifices we're making now is so that when we all do finally get back together again, nobody is missing. And I think that's a really good way of saying it.
Exactly.
But yeah, also during all of this, obviously, as I've started to recover, I've had a bit of time on my hands to
Not like that.
convalesce. Not like that. And I did. Have you seen You Cannot Kill David Arquette?
I really need to get. I mean, it's a must. I have to watch that at some point.
Yeah,
And I did miss the boat on the Sky bottle. Although maybe it is because I know they leave stuff on demand for a while. So if it's not too late, maybe I can use the search function to find it
yeah. It was
available to
on
download.
Sky documentaries where I saw it. Very interesting indeed. And it's got Ric Flair and DDP on there. The reason it reminded me actually is because right at the end there was because he goes to do some training in Mexico, and right at the end they had two luchadors in a supermarket, and I said to my other half that they were clearly ahead of the curve when it came to wearing a mask in a supermarket.
Hey.
Hey, but how have you been? Because we've kept in touch a bit, but for our dear listeners, they've not heard your dulcet tones for a month basically.
Oh, well, that's one way of putting it. Dulcet tones, my
Yeah.
thick Cockney drawl, and my inability to keep the mic at the exact same position with proximity to my mouth. Yeah, I'm made for this project. I'm surprised I've lasted this long. I really am surprised you haven't just found someone else who's insanely obsessed with WCW to do this with. But yeah, as people who hear your wildly differing introductions of me over the last dozen episodes will ascertain, uh, my workload has been increasing just before, during, and after this period of lockdown, and I do contribute in the ever growing, transitioning new media entity that is DAZN, which is basically hoping to be like the Netflix of sports. Quite a few people subscribed already. I implore you to subscribe as well. It's rolled out globally, and it's available in the UK now. And for the time being, it's just £1.99 a month, and that entitles you to watch. I mean, the recent fight between Luke Campbell and Ryan Garcia, I should say, that was on DAZN. Canelo fights on DAZN. Pretty much everything they're linked with the exception of the Matchroom stuff, which will stay on Sky. For £2 a month, it's really good content, plus your interviews and news bits. And Eddie Hearn regularly goes on there and breaks news with Ak and Barak. So there's loads of great content there. most people expect the price point to go up, but so will the amount of stuff available. And I know firsthand that they very much plan on keeping that to scale. The price will only go up when there's a considerable amount more to offer on the service. So it's been really good getting back into what's coming close to my first full-time work gig in a couple of years. And obviously also we've got the Hooked on Wrestling website that I always crow about on here. The features continues to be fantastic. Rumble week ongoing, so it's a good
Yeah.
time to be involved in that. Yeah, and with lockdown returning, we've got a little 4-year-old running around the place. So it's been a massive plate spinning exercise, and it is good to just get back to doing this, and hopefully we'll do it on the semi-regular still. You know, it could be another golden age for podcasting if we can keep our
Absolutely.
sanity. And what a way to start! Of course, before we had we were going to have a 2 or 3 weeks off anyway, weren't we, Dean? And before
Yes.
that was extended through circumstances beyond our control, we knew we were coming back with a bang. We knew the first one back would be a watch along, but not just any watch along, Dean.
Oh no. We have we have sat through 36 episodes of hour-long Monday Nitros, and what's this, Liam? This episode is 1 hour 32 minutes long. That'll be 2 hours with ad breaks.
Yep.
What could this possibly mean?
Well, I don't know, but the thumbnail has some dude who's vaguely familiar in double denim. So maybe it's some sort of milestone. Maybe this is some sort of famous episode of Monday Night Show. Shall we try and find out?
I think we should. So I mean, let's just remind ourselves what's been going on Nitro. I mean, they've been doing good. I mean, for the most part, the vast majority of the 36 episodes we've watched have been thumbs up.
Yeah, 2 or 3 episodes we really regretted watching, and that's it, wasn't it?
Yeah,
2 or 3, you could count on one hand. That's a very good average.
yeah, and we often commented that the hour flew by.
Mm.
So now they're doubling that to 2 hours. So now we've got to ask ourselves, and this is the question I guess we'll have answered during this episode: do they have the depth of the talent pool to make a 2 hour show entertaining, engaging, and interesting? Um, I mean, it could be that people that haven't been featured much get featured and actually become big stars. I mean, you look at someone like Eddie Guerrero; he's been one of the talisman of Nitro in so many different matches with so many different opponents. But it's mostly what was it centered around. We've had obviously Ric Flair spending the Macho Man's money and the Macho Man going barking mad and being banned from the building and stuff. That's been going on the last few
Don't
weeks.
forget the banquet table. It's been the MVP of the last few weeks of Nitro, Ric Flair's banquet table.
Oh, amazing. And of course, that perpetual question, Liam, what's going on? What's the deal between Sting and Lex Luger? Well, I get the feeling that might be simmering down a bit now. I think Luger's transitioning to full-fledged babyface now.
Such a shame.
Yeah,
Because we never did find out what is the deal
we
between
didn't.
Sting and Luger.
We didn't, and of course, the Giant is the world champion. And Hogan has disappeared because we all know he'll be returning in a few months' time. So
let's enjoy it while it lasts.
Indeed. So if you do want to watch along with us on the WWE Network or wherever you may be getting your episodes of Nitro from, we are on episode dated May the 27th, 1996.
Dun,
And it
dun,
was
dun.
earlier this week, big news in the States about the network moving to Peacock, was it?
Yes.
So what does that
only.
what does that mean?
It is jumping under an umbrella of a streaming service out there. You remember in America they've got so many more options that we don't get over here, such as Hulu and the TV networks are getting involved. You've got like HBO Max and CBS On Demand and things like that. And this is the NBC's version. So they have this is their attempt to get a bit of a squad together for their service and convince people to do it. And at face value, customers should benefit because you're paying less than you were for just the network, plus you get more under the whole package. And obviously, WWE are laughing all the way to the bank because they've just guaranteed themselves money that they weren't seeing as an independent streaming service.
Right. So I guess so basically, if in America, if you want to subscribe to the WWE network now, you've got to subscribe to this Peacock service.
You have to, but if you were already with the network, you will be paying less for more, or I believe the same amount for more if you take them up for their VIP package, I
Right.
guess, which involves more. I don't know. Like I'm guessing
Oh,
more
because they're getting all these
screens.
tiers, aren't they?
Yeah, more screens. Maybe that's where the 4K enabling is. You know, the usual. I couldn't tell you for sure what the benefits are from a higher price point, but those are usually the sort of things you get if you pay a stream service more. You get like 4K enabled. You get
Yeah.
more. You can use it more screens simultaneously, etc., etc.
Bit like Pornhub then. Allegedly.
I would not know. What's a Pornhub?
I think it's a cookery website.
Is it a hub of porn?
No, that'd be too obvious, wouldn't it?
Too obvious, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, we've got this bloke. He's a giant. What should we call him?
Yeah, I mean, you've always been a fan of the obvious name sites. I thought that was what attracted you, like your subscription to VenezuelanDucksmut.com. You didn't like the cryptic ones, did you?
No, you always forget the names of those websites.
Exactly. So Pornhub may be a hub of porn, but I wouldn't know, obviously.
No, me neither. Right, May the 27th, 1996.
It's like we haven't been away for a single day, isn't it?
We are on 00000. Are you ready?
I am ready as ever.
Okay, we will press play in 3, 2, 1, go. Cue burning buildings.
Yeah, for the first time in 2021, we're going to watch some buildings burn.
Do you realise this is our 4th calendar year? We still haven't run out of stuff to watch.
I really don't want to offend you, but it's actually our 5th.
I blame COVID.
Oh, of course you're going to blame him for everything, aren't you?
Yep. Oh, God, yeah.
You are looking live as professional wrestling's hottest television program has just gotten bigger. Welcome to WCW Monday Nitro on TNT.
Now, for some reason, I have got the go. Oh no! Just as I was saying, I've got the go back, go forward 10 seconds and pause stuck on my screen, but it's now.
It does linger, doesn't it?
Yes. And hello, we've got new announcers.
What the hell?
At ringside, rather than up in that little place they usually are, it's Tony Schiavone and Larry Zbyszko with that little twiddly salute of his.
So Schiavone just said they're covering the first hour, but I must revert back to what I was going to say, which is, what kind of sorcery is this?
What kind of sorcery?
It's interesting. This is the first time we're hearing the voice of Larry Zbyszko on the Nitro. Might even be Schiavone, actually.
On Nitro, yeah.
You'd imagine he's shown up in an interview or so, but maybe he hasn't. Definitely know Zbyszko so far, but Zbyszko obviously became quite a staple of this show. He got involved in some feuds as well.
Of course, yeah. So they're running down the card here. We've got the Shark, John Tenta, that is challenging the Giant for the world title, and we've also got a big singles match between Scott Steiner and Sting, which should be quite good.
for the Great American Bash.
Two staples of the company.
Yep.
New man he'll introduce later on in this television program. The program you already love is now getting
So
bigger
Nitro
as we
is
go to
now
the ring
2
on Nitro.
hours. I think it said Colonel Park will be introducing someone new.
Here's a little bit of trivia that gets lost in the surface of what's going to happen that we won't talk about just yet. Is that yes, Colonel Parker is debuting technically a new client. It's a familiar face for guys who've watched wrestling in the 80s and 90s, but it's like meant to be a new gimmick. But people forget that in retrospect. You just think it's just some fluff match, but no, it was supposed to be it reminds me, do you remember that NXT angle? Who was it that got a big hype up in 2016? Oh, what was his name? They gave him weeks of building up to his first match, and you expect him to come out and crush this guy. And as he's made his first ever entrance, Samoa Joe's come out, choked him out, and you never saw him again.
I don't know.
It was like a big
I can't
troll
remember.
job, and that is what this is like, because they're putting a bit of credence on this being like a big night
Yeah.
for Conor Parker. You wouldn't even remember the match was at the end of it.
So here comes the Nature Boy with Woman and Miss Elizabeth in matching sort of teal-coloured dresses.
Yeah, woman looks drawn. She looks pale. I think she's gone at least 35 to 37 minutes without cheating at something. Yeah, we need to fix that. Her and Liz are matching though.
Indeed.
And
bringing
Liz
up-
is smiling.
Oh, and they've just walked past the banquet table. The banquet table is here, which I think
The
is
real star of the show.
Yeah, it's what we were all wondering about.
Fuck the Giant, put the belt on the table. Like, just have the table pin the Giant.
Hey, if this was DDT promotion in Japan, it would.
Oh, I love that. It was the ladder, wasn't it?
It was a ladder that was the
And
champion.
Did you ever see any video clips that involved the ladder had its own entrance music? And when it would be put on someone to win the title back or whatever, it would play "You Blow It All Sky High." That one.
So here we go. This is the American males, Scotty Riggs and Marcus Alexander Bagwell. He's not Buff Bagwell at this point. He's just Marcus Bagwell, basically, isn't he?
Yeah, we got another 7-8 months to wait for that. I believe we'll watch that unfold on Nitro. I'm pretty certain that was a relatively significant angle, or part of a relatively significant angle.
And the other thing that's significant about this, apart from just the simple fact that it's gone from 1 hour to 2, is basically with the doubling of length, and with obviously what the big angle that's going to happen in a little while on this show, this is the moment in time where WCW's flagship show switches from Saturday night to Monday night.
Yeah, that's what a lot of this dressing up must be about. There can't be any denying that. And we're really hoping, for the sake of this series, aren't we, Dean, that we no longer find ourselves thinking, oh, what are they talking about that happened? What happened on Saturday night? That should, obviously, give it another year or so, and Saturday night's an afterthought. But there's going to be a bit more of a transition, I'd imagine, and hopefully we'll be on top of the major stuff more from now on.
What I never understood with that was why they didn't just run or rerun some of the angles from Saturday night on Nitro. It kind of it keeps your wage bill down a bit. I suppose they have people on contracts. Doesn't really matter how often they wrestle, but as you say, not pointless needed any longer, because here we are with Nitro's the flagship show.
Yeah, Flair damn near threw Riggs to the outside onto Elizabeth. She just got out of the way. It's the most active and dynamic she's been so far.
Big backdrop from Bagwell on Flair. Anderson is in the corner getting pummeled by Riggs.
It's amazing watching Ric Flair guide a match just with his ring positioning. He puts himself right in the right places. Sometimes he puts himself on the ropes a bit too over eagerly, to the point where it might look like he is actually wrestling himself. But you can see and this is something like for a long time I would actually blissfully not pick up on some of these things that you'll be very intricately aware of as someone in the industry, but with little moments like that you really do see who is the leading hand in a dance and who is the follower. Little things like with Flair and these two guys, because I think we saw was it Riggs or Bagwell? We had a decent little singles match with in recent weeks, didn't he?
Bagwell, I think, yeah.
And that was a similar situation where Riggs and Bagwell have got a decent amount of experience, but obviously Ric Flair's gonna on prime time TV. Ric Flair's gonna drive that car.
Yes.
Hit the pole on the outside, ladies and gentlemen.
And also, did you notice when they cleaned house and the American males are in the ring and the horsemen are on the outside, the males were just doing a double hand clap, and the entire crowd seemed to be clapping along with them. And it's just the sterling heel work of the horsemen has got the males over probably better than they've ever been as a tag team in their lives.
Yeah, I'm really trying to gauge this audience because it sounded quite muted at first, but one thing that is abundantly clear is they've booked a much larger venue than most Nitros are held at. So I suppose that is factoring into it.
It's still not a massive venue. It's not, the arenas that they would be doing in a couple of years' time. But, I'd say it's about 6,000-7,000 capacity probably, and it's full.
Yeah, I'm actually going to look up where you'd think I'd remember such a pivotal.
Yeah, I'll have a look. I can tell you where. Macon Coliseum in Macon, Georgia.
It's teamwork and it's experience. And many people feel that coming up with the Great American Bash.
It seats. Oh, for concerts. They won't be for concerts, but we're talking about 7,000-8,000 capacity.
Yeah, it's a minor league hockey stadium.
McMichael's crying like a baby in that figure four, and then party with his wife afterwards.
And they actually list on the Wikipedia entry for venue. They list the Scott Hall debut episode as one of the major things from it. So obviously apparently it also featured the announcement that Hulk Hogan would face Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania. It featured the debut of Paul Bearer as the new manager of The Undertaker.
Is that what that is?
It featured Psycho Sid's return in 1995, which wasn't long before what we're watching now.
And Shivani and Zbyszko have just been given a glass of champagne each by one of Flair's minions, I guess.
Yeah, he has like a busboy, doesn't he? Do you remember the one that delivered the champagne to Deborah that was promptly spilled on the floor?
And also Macon, Georgia, I believe, was the Build hometown of Johnny B. Bad.
And more importantly, Dean, Macon rhymes with bacon.
It does indeed.
And now I really fancy some bacon.
I think we should bow our heads for a moment of silent laughter.
Good cheating on the outside here from Flair. This is what I've missed. This is why I've been so upset to have not been doing more episodes with you while you've been recovering. I've been missing some of this top shelf Ric Flair cheating on the outside.
Well, I'll tell you what, we haven't had any cheating from women yet. Her and Liz just having a laugh on the outside about something, but we've had no cheating.
I can only ascertain that she's paralysed by seeing Elizabeth display personality beside her.
They don't do that on
Well,
Sundays.
Elizabeth is reacting to the action. Did she bump her head or something?
Flair and Anderson linked hands to get extra leverage on an armbar, and then Bagwell just came in and swatted Flair in the head to break it up. And as you say, Elizabeth reacted to it.
Now, I know I crack jokes about her relative lack of input from outside, but this does lead to a fairly serious question worth posing. Do you think, given that we're suddenly seeing this out of her now after all these weeks of her really not doing this heel valet thing very well, do you think someone's had a word with her and said, look, we're moving to 2 hours, this is the big one, we're making our big move on the WWE, we need everyone to put A game, right, Elizabeth's a bit of a sore thumb, let's maybe give her a bit of a crash course on this.
It's possible. I don't know. I mean, the other thing to think about is, this episode of Nitro is going up against a live episode of Raw, and I don't know, because I think Raw was still 1 hour at this point, wasn't it? And so I don't know if the first hour is unopposed and the second hour is where they're head to head. I'm not sure, but they've started out with big names, Flair and Anderson, obviously people from WWF fans would know Elizabeth from previous as they would with Flair. So it's no coincidence that you've got this full action tag match with big names in Flair and Anderson to start things off, and Bagwell really looked like he caught Flair flush on the chin with that top rope drop kick.
Yeah, obviously we're definitely in Flair country here. Arms reversing the small package, old school style, and Riggs is going to flip it back.
And I'm just about to flip it again, but Bagwell picks it.
Tell you what, saying about all the things to start the show off with, one thing they have noted is it is in Georgia, so they're giving some old school tag team goodness.
And Bagwell went for the fisherman's suplex. I think he called that the yellow jacket suplex, because he was from Georgia himself, wasn't he?
Yes.
And
Spraberry High.
That was it. Raspberry High, as Jesse is
Raspberry. Oh, there's woman. There she is.
There you go. Sound the woman cheating klaxon.
Yes.
And
sound the arm DDT klaxon. Oh yes. Give me this match 10 times tonight. I'll be happy.
Flair's just going to crawl over. Flair crawls over on his back with his arm over Bagwell. I wouldn't be surprised if Flair was actually pinning himself there because his shoulders were on the back. But anyway, woman instrumental in a victory for the Horsemen. Not for the first time, not for the last time.
And that match pretty much sums up why we go back over 20 years on to watch more WCW. That was the perfect way to start this episode.
Absolutely.
Considering backstage, you know what they're thinking, because they're going for this big storyline and they're going for this big move up in the length of the show, and they start off with that. Yes, fucking please.
And Flair's just poured champagne on his head, presumably because he doesn't want to drink anything, because Bagwell's just rearranged his teeth.
Mean Gene's here, he spotted that woman's about.
Yeah, and woman already with her hands away.
Flair is soaked.
In Baltimore, Maryland, live on pay-per-view. Yes, you're going to be facing none other than Steve McMichael, his partner Kevin Green.
And of course, we have to do this interview at the banquet table.
Yep.
Like it is.
So it's Flair and Anderson against Steve McMichael and the recently departed Kevin Green.
I never saw a woman
at the next pay-per-view, which is the Great American Bash.
Yes. There's a classic line from Arn. I remember that one when he first said it. I've never met a football player I couldn't walk over to get to a better fight.
Hand to hand. Keep that in
Great
mind
line.
when you come and see the Horsemen.
You eyeballed Deborah McMichael for a long time.
Come in here, girls.
And
Here we go. Flair starts off at like a level 10.
Which is his default setting most weeks.
It is these days.
I maintain what I said on the previous episode. This period of his career gets overlooked as one of his bright spots, because obviously you can't match it to some extent to when he was going out on the road wrestling an hour-long classic 3 times a week. And I know there's certain career highlights that are better than him just doing whatever on Nitro, but he's so entertaining.
That's why, McMichael, are you been playing football?
Well, you probably couldn't get away with this angle nowadays, could you? Ric Flair with 2 women in tow.
Belongs to the nation.
He's just insinuated that while McMichael's been off playing football, he's been making up for
doing
lost
his
time.
misses, basically. Yeah.
You know what? Another little secret. You know, Savage.
Oh, he's gone on to Randy Savage now.
Wow! In addition to poking other people's wives, he's got to poke the bear, hasn't he?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Mean Gene is trying to cut him short because he's that. That's a brilliant little touch from Gene, to be fair. Just diving in to say, all right, that.
When we come back, they are in training preparing for the Great American Bash. Stay with us.
So we've just been showing a little clip there of Michael and Green in the gym preparing. That's a good few weeks away, though, that pay-per-view, isn't it?
They'll be facing Kevin Green and Steve Mongo McMichael coming up at the
A
Great
few
American
weeks,
Bash.
yeah.
It's the
Few
two
weeks,
former
yeah.
All-Pros, one former All-Pro, and Kevin Green of the
It'll
Carolina
feel like a
Panthers
long
getting
way
their
away
workout
because of
in.
how much will change in the interim.
Yeah.
But right now, we feel like we're in the middle of your typical early 90s Nitro, don't we?
You know, this is Michael and Green in the gym. It's like a shit Rocky montage
With even shitter bandanas.
and really weird kind of deliberately juddery camera work.
Oh, I hated that. What was the benefit of that sort of camera?
I don't know, but I do feel like I'm having a seizure right now.
Because
It might be the COVID.
we know that the infamous Neil Pruitt voiced NWO things will be round the corner, and there was a purpose for those. They're doing like a deliberate, like murky outsider style. But why can't you just show these guys? Look, they're training hard. They're going to try and beat the wrestlers. Wish them luck. Oh. Obviously, it has given us the benefit of taking Mongo off commentary for the time.
Well, there is that, yes. So Mongo described Kevin Green as his enforcer.
And do you know what? Is this the first episode we have done with the gap? It might be the first time we've done this watch-along since Kevin Green's unfortunate passing.
I think it is, yeah.
Such a rest in peace, because out of all the non-wrestlers who stepped into the ring, he was definitely one of the better ones, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, he was tremendous, yeah. And also you could see that he was taking it seriously, and he was treating it with respect
No question about it.
and training properly and learning.
Michael and Kevin Green, two of the most powerful men Ric Flair and Arn Anderson will ever face.
Oh, stop it. They're going about it all wrong. They're lifting weights like a
It's time
couple
for
of
another match,
overgrown
Steve.
dumbbells.
Yep,
Thinking
who's
power
next?
is going to solve the puzzle. Power, strength has
Oh, this is
nothing to do with
Steve
it.
Dole, formerly of Well Done in the WWF.
This name rings a bell.
In the world, these guys are dead meat.
I feel like I have some sort of link between Steve Dole and Monday Nitro.
He was a big regional star in the Pacific Northwest area. Then yeah, he went to WWF as one half of the undercard team Well Done, and
Yeah, but on
disappeared. This is
Nitro.
probably his first appearance on national TV since then. But yeah, something happens here. So here's Colonel Robert Parker with his new wrestler, the Baller, who also looks very familiar as Mike Enos, one half of the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, and then the Beverly Brothers in the WWF. And why does this match seem familiar to me and you, Liam?
Well, I'll say one thing. If you are uninitiated, you would look at this and you'd think, well, this is the first sign that Nitro's gone 2 hours, because what is normally a solid thing is now finding room for dross like this. 2 former members of of two different, really lame WWF tag teams of the early 90s
Yeah,
are,
journeyman.
are going at it in a singles match, which is meant to be some sort of big thing for Colonel Robert Parker. It's more of an indication that his star recruiting abilities have really gone down since the stud stable days.
Yeah, I mean, look at the charisma coming out of the Mauler. And even the name, the Mauler, it's a bit meh, isn't it?
And you can watch him walk. The guy's got some self-confidence, knows what he's doing.
The crowd are chanting something, but I can't make out what it is.
Colonel Rob Parker, a scoop slam. You know, since the Macho Man was taken
Steve
away
Dole's
from all
leg goes
television,
crashing into the camera.
events,
You
there
could
have
hear
been,
it, couldn't you?
Security people at all the doors and all the exits, the entrances, and World Championship Wrestling.
And
making sure
he's
that he
doing
stays
a
out,
middle
because you
rope
never know
fall
what he's
away
going to do.
slam.
Look at this.
Oh,
Now
nice.
the fall away slam, that's a signature move of a well-known wrestler, isn't it?
All the way across the ring. And the
He'll be doing the Razor's Edge next, won't he, Dave?
Look at the Mauler's eyes. I always look at a man's eyes, because that tells you what's inside the soul.
Yeah.
Mauler here.
Did you take a look at
If
the
he
eyes
threw him
of
any
Michael
further, we'd be
Green
throwing him
during
to
that
the edge
workout
of the
video?
hall.
They're confused.
Or
No, they're
arena,
not.
or whatever it's called.
I would love to know Eric Bischoff's demeanour right now.
Yeah.
During the early stage, what is he thinking? What the anticipation levels of how this is going to come off?
I'm just looking forward to. I'm looking at the crowd here because I keep looking at where they start reacting, when they start realizing something's happening, and then how they start reacting when it sinks in what's going on. But in the meantime, they've both Steve Dole and the Mauler have spilled they've fell over the top rope, they've spilled out to the floor.
I kind of feel bad for Mike Enos here. He's working his ass off to make a good first impression, and it's gonna mean absolutely stuff all.
Did he ever work again in WCW? I mean,
Given how many
Jimmy
people they
does.
kept, given how many people they kept on, I have absolutely no doubt they filled out Saturday night for a while. I might have to check Cage Match after. You've got me curious now.
As you say, with all the shows that they had, it must have. Oh, here we go. Look, we can see.
Straight away after the break.
Yeah, and the crowd are on their feet.
They're standing up row by row as they realise. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and now the camera's found Scott Hall.
Wait a minute. What the hell is going on here?
But he just got reversed right there.
And Tabisco's trying to stay on job, and Schiavone's just like, what the hell?
Well, what the hell?
And he's got the toothpick.
The match has stopped dead now as he's outside the ring.
Scott Hall's just turned up, and he's now getting in the ring.
And Parker's like getting his man out there. He's like, no, we're having none of this.
You people, you know who I am.
You people know I am.
Don't know why I'm here.
Know why?
Sorry, I know this program off.
I was going to say, I should, for those who are not watching along, Dean is saying this before Scott Hall is. But then again, I think we all are watching this, aren't we?
Yeah, so Scott Hall is now asking where Billionaire Ted and the Nacho Man and the Huckster and all that are. Because, remember, this was when the WWF were doing their new generation stuff and were saying that WCW had all the old guys. This crowd are in shock. They don't quite know how to react, do they? Look at them.
He wants Scheme Gene. I think he's backstage with Woman, I'm afraid.
So he's got the toothpick, he's got the kiss curl, and of course he's got the accent of Razor Ramon at this moment in time. And this is why the WWF launched a lawsuit about intellectual property, because they were basically saying that he was making out he's a WWF wrestler in his WWF gimmick.
I have to ask, I've heard several references to Billionaire Ted, several references to the Nacho Man. Did he say the Huckster at any point?
I think he did, but I'm not entirely sure.
Because if he didn't, is that like one of the greatest pieces of foreshadowing? I might have to watch that again now afterwards.
He definitely said Billionaire Ted, the Macho or the Nacho Man.
He definitely repeated both of those. I don't think I heard the Huckster in his first go around of those names.
I'm going to have a look. There'll be a what do you call it? A transcript somewhere.
Yeah, there's a massively mammoth approach to this, massively naturalistic. He's kind of on the best cam for it, but he's not like stand in front and saying he's taken the mic, he's gone in the ring at his earliest convenience. He's obviously addressing the camera because he's got a message for everyone, but the hushed tones, everything was an attempt to be as realistic as possible, and definitely at the very least a damn sight more realistic than what you see on WWE now, where everything is just so homogenized.
Do you know something here? He mentions Billionaire Ted, the Nacho Man, Scheme Gene. He does not mention Hogan. I guess because Hogan is out of WCW at this point.
I mean, it's not like he's out of contract. They know he's coming back. He's filming.
Yeah,
but
they hadn't concluded that he was going to be the third man at this point. I don't believe, unless they had. Like you said, it's a load of massive foreshadowing, because I remember reading stories that Hogan had to be convinced almost like the day of the show, the day before the show, he had to be convinced to do it. But
I mean, it's absolutely not deliberate, knowing that how much they had to talk him into it. It's only like late on that he realised it was going to massively benefit him, so suddenly he was fucking interested. But in retrospect, it just makes it look even more deliciously ominous. And if you want to hear Dean and I and some other dude, what's his face, who's our special guest, talk for a ridiculous amount of time about the amazing setting of Bash at the Beach 1996 and just how ominous an atmosphere they successfully set up in what was probably their greatest offering, all things considered. That is a very recent episode. Go for our back archives for Bash at the Beach 96, and while you're at it, listen to all the others as well,
yeah, you can of course subscribe so you immediately get any new episodes like this one landing in your podcast inbox, for want of a better expression. But now we have got another match. That last match was just abandoned, basically, no ending. And we've now got Sergeant Craig Pittman, who has Teddy Long as his manager, against Diamond Dallas Page, who is no longer broke because he won the Battle Bowl.
He did indeed. He's bought new tights because of it. Meanwhile, you'll be pleased to know that Pittman has finally paid off that search for a manager.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. And there's a really good spot there where he was doing one-armed press-ups at the behest of DDP. DDP then went to boot him in the ribs. Pittman moved out of the way, and Page took a great exaggerated pratfall, basically.
Yeah, he was so good in that lower mid-card heel role. He was never afraid to make a tit of himself. He was very entertaining because of it. And also, it was even then, it was still surprising to see just how far he went. But I was always a DDP fan. Got to meet the man himself when he toured London a few years ago. Did a few interviews for Yahoo Sports.
And this stuff here, this is great now because he headbutted Pittman. Pittman no-sold it, and Page got dazed and fell backwards through the middle ropes. Landed himself in a roll of cable and then got himself all tangled up in the cable. Just simple but fantastically done.
That reminded me of the nets in Austin Powers.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know when they throw something at him and Austin Powers will actually pull it to his face and act like he's incapacitated?
Yes.
Just need a judo chop now.
Well, you have to wonder who this benefactor is.
I hear a
Yeah,
lot of rumors.
he's
Personally,
doing his
I
best to
think
make
it's
Pittman
Kimberly.
look like $1 million,
You know how women idol does
which I
one
can
man
only
and another
ascertain
one
means
doesn't.
he's gonna eat the
That's
diamond
what
cutter in the
happens.
next 2 minutes.
I've been around the world
It's almost
3
like
times.
he's been watching the Macho Man formula.
The code red.
Oh, he's going for his finisher,
He's upside down.
Yeah, the
Right, he's
code
got
red,
to
the
turn on
arm
the front
breaker.
side.
Always right.
which means we need a screenshot of this so we can stick Bernie Sanders onto it.
Get that busybody out of there.
Diamond Dallas pulling on Teddy Long and shoving Teddy Long down.
Long, he hit the retaining rail here.
Teddy Long got shoved into the
Oh,
rail, and
nice.
there's the diamond cutter.
Oh,
The
my,
setup
he
for
got
that
it
was
on.
very creative. I like that. He actually
One,
shoved
two,
Teddy
three.
Long away so that Pittman would step through the ropes
What a
onto
win
the
that
apron
was.
to check
I
with his
tell you,
manager.
one thing about
And
Diamond
as he's
Dallas, you gotta
ducked his
agree
head
with.
back under the ropes
Here's
to
a
come
man
back
that
in the
takes
ring,
advantage of
bang,
all the
the timing of that was sweet. And another chapter for the diamond cutter out of nowhere legacy.
And that was virtually the only offensive move that Page hit.
The only one he needed, Dino.
Oh
It's
yeah.
the only one he needed.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh, we're going to take a look at the. They've just called him Nutty Macho Man.
So is that why it's called the Nacho Man? It's a portmanteau of nutty and macho.
Nutty and Macho.
And you can see in these highlights just how important Saturday night still was, because for some reason he was brawling with a public enemy on Saturday night.
Yeah. Oh no, that's where the referee was trying to stop him from elbowing another ref.
And do you know what this video package is telling us, Dean?
Is it that Randy Savage is out of control?
I think so. I'm hoping there's another video package to ask what the deal is between Sting and Lex Luger. But yeah, as I recall, am I right in saying he's storyline suspended right now?
Yes.
But he will be back at the Bash.
Scott Hall just referenced it in his promo that he's not even allowed in the building.
Yeah, that's true. But he'll be in the corner of the football players as their coach, which makes sense because you give them that wrestling help because it's footballers versus wrestlers.
Yeah, you need someone there just to, in case things go tits up, you can someone who can hold it together.
Yeah. Plus on the storyline front, it's like, well, how are they going to out wrestle a couple of wrestlers without a bit of coaching?
Yeah. Up next, it's the Giant. He dares anyone to take that title from him. And Mean Gene is backstage now with the Shark, John Tenter.
This seems like a bit of a weird match to have on the big Nitro, but I would imagine that the purpose of this is just going to be to show off the Giant's strength.
Jimmy Hart brings a man in, Slamboree, and it makes me lose the match. I'm not
And he's not happy with Jimmy Hart.
In Jimmy Hart's face, the Giant comes, choke slams me.
He's no longer in the Dungeon of Doom.
Says,
yeah.
I'm not in the dungeon anymore.
Wait a minute, has he officially thrown you out of the dungeon?
Oh, they go, yep, he's thrown out of the dungeon.
I'm gonna hurt you.
Which must be devastating to be thrown out of the Dungeon of Doom.
Wrestling Heavyweight Championship.
I mean,
botched his line there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna win the world wrestling heavy.
All right, I've seen you upset
What did
before,
he
Shark,
repeated?
but
Either
this is a little,
championship or wrestling.
typical, I have to say.
I'm botching
he's
my
so
announcement
upset.
of his
It's
botch.
the Giant, the WCW heavyweight title, and you're going to take a crack at
All
Jimmy
of a
Hart.
sudden, the Giant's the big man on campus. I'm the
He's
one.
been chucked out of the Dungeon of Doom. This is how Frank Lampard felt earlier this week.
And speaking of Hulkamania, he has been hobnobbing
Yeah,
with some
who
of the
could have
top
seen
in
that
sports
coming?
and
Huh?
entertainment. We
I
missed him
can't
here at
believe
World
that the
Championship Wrestling,
side
but I
who
want you to take
sacked
a
a
look
bunch of
at some the
managers
celebrities
every
Hulk
time
Hogan's
they
been
go
spending
5
time with
seconds
lately.
without winning the trophy, who promised that they would stop doing that and they'd give their homegrown hero several years to build a lasting legacy. Even
Hold the phone here, Liam. We've got a Hulk Hogan babyface music video telling us how great Hulk Hogan is, even though he's not been around for a couple of months.
yeah, personally, I'd have rather just carried on with my Frank Lampard monologue. Thanks for dragging me back to this garbage.
He's training boxing with George Foreman. I don't know
George
how that
Foreman
helps
used to
wrestling.
be my favourite boxer.
Superstar Shaquille O'Neal, who was with him as he first won the WCW World Title.
What is the point of this?
Well, they're going big on the celebrity endorsements because that's what they've got to do to remind us, yes, he's still a big deal. It's just further emphasising just how behind the current flow of wrestling he was. And I don't even, if he'd have bottled the Hollywood heel turn, I don't even want to think what would have entailed for him, because he would have looked even more like a relic, a dinosaur.
When he went here, I don't know, because obviously you didn't get the behind the scenes insight into things that you do now via social media. Once he turned heel, I don't know if he was still doing all of the hanging around with other celebrities or stuff, or if that was all kept hush hush because it didn't fit the character.
Well, what is uncomfortable is that he's hobnobbing with all these celebrities to remind us he's a big deal. They're all African American athletes, and we know what he thinks of those.
I hadn't even thought of that. Very good point. We are now into the second hour of Nitro, and it's now looking and sounding a bit more familiar because we've got Eric Bischoff introducing things, and we can see just on the long range shot there, we can see the usual desk. No Steve Mongo McMichael, thank fuck for that. So it's just Heenan and Eric Bischoff.
That's weird. Why don't they just have Schiavone and Zbyszko at the booth as well? And then while they're showing that ridiculous Hogan reel, they can swap them over.
Well, they have an ad break as well.
With the dresser in front of the door, they're both under the beds with that miserable little chihuahua, and they're looking at each other wondering.
Heenan straight on the offensive about the Horseman versus Footballers match.
Yep.
And it's worth noting that Zbyszko was very much in the heel commentary role. He was having a few digs at McMichael and Green as well.
Oh, Bischoff says we're not even going to, I love this, we're not even going to dignify the interruption that happened. And how do you not dignify it? You mention it specifically. And then talk about what he said.
Heavyweight champion, the Giant. And this is
So as it turns out, the Shark has his own theme music when he's not in the dungeon.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next contest on Nitro is for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship.
Until presumably the composer, what's his name, John Williams, the composer of the Jaws music, probably got onto them for intellectual property as well.
I mean, considering how many blatant rip-offs there are in WCW entrance themes, I'd shocked if one's collared that. I think what died that one off is just because it was a really shit gimmick.
Also, did you notice the two children in the front row who had lately been given Hulk Hogan bandanas to put on their heads?
Yeah. Quick, find those kids from earlier, we need them. Put them on camera.
And here comes the Giant.
He looks so impressive with the championship around his waist, doesn't he?
So we are kicking off the second hour now. I'm wondering, I'm thinking if this is the head-to-head with Nitro hour, with Raw hour, I should say, or if that was hour number one.
I have to check, but considering they stuffed the Horseman and the Scott Hall appearance in the first hour,
yeah, I'm thinking
yeah. Whereas now we're about to get your typical Nitro, you know, Giant versus Shark, Sting versus Scott Steiner. Reasonable stuff for a Nitro up against the taped Raw, for instance, in previous weeks.
Oh, but this is against a live Raw.
I don't know if he really does have Luger.
King of the Ring qualifiers.
And something happened with that
So
megaphone with the
as this
stinger
match
last
is
time
happening
there.
on
Luger gets the shot.
Nitro,
I
on
don't
Raw
think
we've
Luger
got the
wanted
Ultimate
Sting
Warrior
to
and
win that match. I
Goldust.
think he wanted to go in the back door like he did. Smart move on his part.
Well, we are into it here.
Shark
And
straight
a
on the
lot
attack.
of,
Fun enough,
well,
he
we
has
won't call
Shark
it hate,
attack
we'll
written
just
on
call
his
it
arse.
resentment, a grudge match, if you will. The Shark, a man who thought that he was,
So,
he resided comfortably in the Dungeon of Doom, found out
Obviously, the
that
Dungeon of
depth
Doom have
of
lost Loch Ness by
dirty
this
work
point.
can go
Yep.
real deep.
And
the
Shark's
Shark
on the
the
outs as
receiving end of
well.
a choke slam from that man.
We don't
And
know
he's
how
out.
long they
You
actually
heard the
go.
interview.
I suppose up
Well, there's
until
almost a ton-
a certain
there's
someone
almost
in
a
the
ton
ring
of human
joins the
being in
New
that
World
ring right
Order
there.
in a few months.
Well over 1,000
Yeah.
pounds. That man's over
And that'd be the end
500
of the
pounds.
Dungeon
The
Doom,
Giant,
wouldn't
the champion, close to 500 pounds, and they don't like each other.
And you know,
No,
John
they don't at
Tenter
all.
was
Of course, we've seen
an
the Shark
enormous
and Big
man,
Bubba together
and he looks
in more
just
places
normal
than one
size next to
recently,
the
but
Giant.
obviously no love lost between
Big
these two, and the
clothes
big man is off
We've
his
said
feet.
this
bump.
several
500
times
pounds,
before,
goes
but
off his feet
if
like a
the
180
Giant had
pound
kept
man.
in that
This
shape,
is
Jesus
incredible.
Christ,
Look, he's standing on the Shark like he's standing on a curve.
he'd have been
I'll tell you what
peerless,
can
wouldn't
happen
he?
here. A couple things can
Yeah.
happen. Shark can come out of
Imagine,
this
imagine
as the WCW
in that
heavyweight champion
shape,
of the world, or
still
he could be
getting fed
mounted
up with
over the
WCW when he did and
mantelpiece at the
coming
Giant's
over
house like a big
to
fish,
face
or he could have missed his pause and be fish stick.
peak Steve Austin.
And you
Although I suppose the biggest
you see
obstacle
that
there, I
right
mean,
across
Vince
the
McMahon
throat.
has never been that offended
One heck of a
by
lot of fish sticks, by the way.
a
He
big
didn't-
guy
That's the
being a
two
bit
packages you have
chubby.
to put in the deep
I think the
fryer.
biggest
The
problem
Shark
there might have
now
been
against
Vince
the
Russo's
Giant.
writing.
Double sledge behind the head. The Giant
I mean,
weathers the
if you remember
storm,
correctly,
takes two
he had
big clubbing
Steve Austin
forearms,
pin the Big
three
Show
forearms from this
6 days
500
before
pound
WrestleMania.
monster. And now
I
the
don't
Giant
know.
When
is
you'd
really
think after he got the
only
title
man in
back from The
WCW
Rock at
that can
WrestleMania
try to
15,
manhandle
you'd
him.
think that's your next
Look at
program,
that
wouldn't you?
Mm.
After what happened at St. Valentine's Massacre in the cage match, that's waiting for like 6 months of business after WrestleMania. But
Yeah.
And the Giant picked him up like he was picking up a grain of-
Definitely. Big slam on Shark by Giant, and the crowd really popped for that one.
yeah, I think that must be the main fault behind booking this, because he's not a threat to the title. But it's a good way to show off the Giant's strength, because as you said,
Yeah.
he's against a large and tall person, and he's just towering over him. So it's
What's
really
odd
making him
here
look
is this is presumably the Shark's babyface turn, or first match post babyface turn. Surely you'd want to have him steamroll over a lower card heel, but instead he's against the Giant in a match he's clearly not going to win, and the crowd are pretty much dead for this.
Well, I suppose it's not like they see much value in him. They're turning him face to maybe freshen things up. They're not thinking, oh, babyface John Tenter will set business alight. I think from what everyone says about John Tenter, they just loved having him around. He was well received by everyone. They probably just wanted to keep him justified on the payroll on the Nitro appearances. But he's at this point he's got no business beating anyone of any note. So why not just dispose of him to the world champion, and he'd slowly work his way down from there. Although we do know, I plugged Bash at the Beach before, he does get one high-profile pay-per-view win, which you'll remember. I thought that was better than most people did.
Oh, we're against Big Bubba.
Yeah. It was well booked. There was lots of gimmicks involved, and it was.
Oh, was that the Carson City
Yep.
Silver Dollar thing? Yeah.
Jimmy knows what he's doing here. Jimmy sacrificed-
And Jimmy Hart was involved there, so maybe there's a linkage. Jimmy Hart's just caused the Shark to walk into the chokeslam.
And the crowd reacted to that. The crowd were literally up on their feet for the chokeslam.
Yeah, happy to see him go up, because that's an impressive chokeslam.
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you what.
And Tenter took
Speaking
it
of Big
down as
Bubba,
well.
Pick that man up.
What's
Oh,
Bubba
yeah.
doing in here? What's he doing?
another man for 1,000 gimmicks, and he's shaving his head. So here we go. Speak of Bash at the Beach team. This is the match that leads
yes,
to
because
that.
because we saw him with half his head shaved, didn't we?
So they've jobbed him to the world champion to show off the Giant's strength. Fair enough. because it's the Giant after all, and everyone should be losing to him at the moment. And he's now got a program as a babyface. That's not too bad.
Yeah, and yeah, they've shaved one half of John Tenta Shark's head.
And Bubba with his greaser biker look and uncomfortably a Confederate tattoo certainly looks the part as a heel in his 4 billionth reincarnation since rejoining WCW.
Yes.
Look at that. Half his hair cut. Only half his head.
Max taking on Lex
And we have a
Luger
guy
for
I've
the
never seen in my life
WCW
before
World
called
Title.
Max taking on Luger for the TV side.
Going to happen next.
Is it Max Muscle?
All right, welcome back.
You remember there was a Max Muscle who was
There
in
was,
the
yeah.
corner of DDP.
Before the end of the hour, we were pretty rudely interrupted here. He wants to call me a Ken doll or a weatherman. He can do that, I guess.
Bischoff still seething about Scott Hall's appearance.
Yeah, he's not going to dignify it by mentioning it, but he's mentioning it.
He's seething on air, but secretly he's like seeing the pound signs.
Yeah.
With a man who is going to get a shot at the giant and great American badge.
You know, if the Monday Night Wars happened now, it would basically every week be a battle, a race to see who could be trending #1 worldwide on Twitter, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so
It'd be
this
like,
is
yeah,
this is
is
Max
Ultimate
Muscle.
Warrior #1 trend, or is it Razor Ramon?
Yeah. This is definitely Max Muscle. I've just looked up. He did change his name to MAXX for a little while.
Right.
And apparently he's part of the Dungeon of Doom. I didn't know that.
Okay.
He had his own theme music, whereas the usual Dungeon of Doom Goombas come out to that awful cackling track, don't they?
Yeah. Maybe he was a prominent feature of WCW Saturday Night. We just never saw him.
And soon we'll never have to wonder that ever again.
I've just seen that there's someone applauding there by the banquet table. Has Flair's boss voice still out?
Potentially, but don't speak ill of the next WCW World Champion, not the bellboy, the table. Blow it off sky high.
Luger is one of Sting's best friends, apparently. I thought he was Sting's best friend.
Yeah, but what is the deal, Dean?
Well, they're best friends. One of them's best
I'm
friends.
glad we know the deal now. Case closed.
I mean, there could be other best friends, though, from what they're saying.
Are you trying to insinuate there is a Miro to the Chucky T? Which is a very strange. I can't help but watch it storyline on AEW at the minute.
Nice haircut, Max.
Yeah, if you're going
I want to see how it pays off.
It's just weird how they're having Orange Cassidy. Like, he's meant to be nonchalant, and yet he's sad that his friend is blatantly being forced to do this. So I think it could be written better. Plus, there's the fact that why would Chuck Taylor agree to a match where he has to do that if he loses and he has nothing to gain if he wins?
Yeah, there's no payoff if you win.
What kind of moron is Chuck Taylor?
We've been talking a lot about Steve McMichael and Kevin Green, and yes, Kevin Green is scheduled to appear on the Jay Leno show tomorrow night. You can bet he and Jay Leno will be
again,
talking
I think we've got a bit of a shark giant flavour here. Is all I can see in the ring right now, Dean, is a big lug who's going to go up in the rack.
In the rack, exactly. And I think the crowd think that as well, because we've got a lot of empty blue seats where people have clearly gone for a piss or for a hot dog, or to piss on a hot dog, it's a popular hobby in Georgia, and yeah, the kids are reacting a little bit, but that's about it.
I've heard of pissing on cornflakes, and now I've heard of pissing on hot dogs.
And pissing on your chips, surely.
That one sounds a bit too northern for me.
No, I don't want to piss on your chips.
Do the chips have gravy on them? If so,
You know,
definitely too northern for me.
Or you know, piss on your parade.
That sounds like another website you signed up for.
Yeah, it's only $5 a month. It's great value.
Like this afternoon's lunch.
Real quick.
Crowd into Luger.
Yeah, Luger with his horrible looking clotheslines. Oh, but a big power slam from Max.
I tell you what, he just showed me something there, Luger, is that whether or not you can throw a good punch or a clothesline really doesn't matter. If you catch those ropes with a good bit of pace, that seems to be what the fans pick up on. And I suppose if you've got a lot of charisma and energy behind your punches and you miss by like a foot, you'll still probably whip the crowd up into a frenzy.
And there could be a three-pointer.
No, he wants to come out here. He can wait till the end of the hour. He can wait till the end of the hour.
Bischoff sounds like he's talking off mic to someone about he can wait till the end of the hour.
Yeah, getting the heck out of here.
That could be another Scott Hall thing.
Yeah. I'll let him speak at the end of the hour. Well, maybe he is referring to. Does Hall turn up again at the end? I can't remember.
Well, we will get into subsequent weeks for sure where him and someone else, a big man, will show up at the end of shows. Maybe that actually starts here.
I love the way that this happened 25 years ago. But we're careful not to give spoilers.
Well, you never know. There's probably someone out there who doesn't have a clue what's going on. His name is probably Paul Benson. I do love having a dig at Paul Benson.
Instantly, I was looking at our stats for the last month, and we only had one listener from Parts Unknown.
Paul Benson.
So, I was going to say either means that Podbean's geographical detection has improved, or we really need to up our game in marketing this podcast to the good people of Parts Unknown.
That being said, the last time we touched base with the Parts Unknown situation, we did mention that there was a bit of an insurrection going on in office that could cause disruptions. I would suggest that is what has led to the numbers going down. But then, to be honest, I don't know about you, Dean, but I'm a bit tired of bloody insurrections and attempting to take Parliament buildings.
Well, I've got to say before those riots that well, it was a few weeks ago now, wasn't it? But before those riots, the only time I'd ever heard the word insurrection was for WWF UK only pay-per-view.
That's very true. Although I do have to correct you, they're not riots, they're protests. I checked the colour chart, and apparently
the Family Guy colour chart.
Yeah. Some of the coverage, I don't want to veer off too much, but some of the coverage was nauseating. The amount of P's and Q's being minded when it comes to those guys, who are thankfully under arrest now.
I just heard Bischoff talking about Yokozuna, so I don't know if he's talking about something that's going on in WWF. Here we go.
And look at the pop before he's even lifted him up.
Yeah.
That's why they book these matches. I suppose if you're gonna pad out your first 2-hour show with filler, there is worse matchmaking than giving your big, strong top stars big, strong bodies to lift up.
Yeah.
It's very old school, Dean. Give us the Giant powering up Shark. Give us Lex Luger lifting up Max Muscle, and then put them on collision calls at the Great American Bash. Even Bobby Heenan's referencing the one-upsmanship of it. Ooh, I've got time for that.
All right, very impressive here tonight on WCW Monday Nitro.
Mean Gene's wrestled himself away from women to be in the ring.
On June the 16th in Baltimore, Maryland, at the Great
June the
American
16th, so we're talking about 3 weeks away, aren't we?
And you knew it was going to be in Baltimore because they're all in Baltimore.
They're
I've been to Baltimore a couple of days in there. I enjoyed it very much.
You ate your sandwiches outside the venue that Sting won the world title?
Yeah, I had a little lunch break for some sightseeing. There was no reason to go inside the Royal Farms Arena, but I had a little glimpse. Did the walk between the Orioles baseball ground and the Ravens stadium. Did I tell you I got to interview Michael Phelps for Under Armour?
And nobody,
I didn't know that. I also heard you once went to Japan.
Yes, and I also managed Terry Funk. Oh, hang on, that was someone else.
No, that was weird. So, Mean Gene's just querying the fact that DDP has been denied a title shot against Luger for the TV title.
Was that DDP's attempt to get some sort of bargain from the world title match you never got?
Yeah.
Wrestling, trying to make a living, put food on the table, Giant.
And we've just seen Giant choke slamming Luger through a table a few weeks ago.
That you did that to the total package.
And Luger's now referring to himself in the third person.
Giant, you tried to take me out, but the mistake
tried to take me out, Giant.
I'm still
dinner
standing
and
here,
coffee.
and this guy here was a big man. I just put him in the rack. I want every big man WCW's got before I wrestle the Giant.
He wants to wrestle exclusively big men to put them all in the rack.
Yeah, so that he can rack the Giant. Well, that's interesting build-up.
The size of the Giant for the size of this man we just saw in the ring for Luger to put him in the rack.
Gene can't even remember the name of Luger's opponent.
That is going to be June the 16th.
I mean, they cut him down to one name. You think that'd make it easier?
What's the name of the big guy again? You know, the Giant? Yeah, the Giant.
Matt or Melvin or something.
Okay, so we're now going to have a match between Hard Work Bobby Walker and Brad Armstrong. Now, as you know, I loved Brad Armstrong, but this isn't a Nitro level match. This is a WCW Pro or something like that level.
So, Hard Work Bobby Walker is coming out in a boxing robe to what sounds like a rip-off of the Rocky theme. Well, not the Rocky theme, to Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
Which is sort of an unofficial Rocky theme.
Against a man who is, without question, one of the most recognized of the cruiserweight contenders, Brad Armstrong.
Here comes Brad Armstrong.
One of the most underrated WCW themes.
Oh,
that guitar wail.
One of the most underrated WCWs.
Yes, I know, Dean. Will you stop going on about it? I'm joking. But yeah, and he's got a Stars and Stripes. So are we getting Rocky Balboa versus Apollo Creed for that Stars and Stripes?
So yeah, did anyone else use that theme tune, or was that just Brad Armstrong?
His brothers. It was like the Armstrong family. Because you had Scott and Steve tagging up on. I remember they tagged a lot on Saturday Night and Worldwide when I'd see them open up an edition of Channel 5's Worldwide.
The WCW Executive Committee best she can. And in case you just joined us, you may have heard that we were rudely interrupted
the infamous
here
feud between the Armstrong brothers and the faction of William Regal, or Lord Stephen Regal, Finlay and Dave Taylor. Oh, what a highlight of 1999 WCW that was, Dino.
And just worth mentioning in commentary here, I think this is basically just a match that Bischoff can talk over about the angle that we saw earlier, because he's refusing to name Scott Hall because he doesn't want to incur the wrath of any legal teams.
Of course,
given what they've done.
Yeah, but the fans here in the arena live, having been surprised by Scott Hall showing up in the last filler match, they're probably looking around the arena now expecting like Sparky Plug to show up.
Kevin Nash, yeah. Sparky Plug.
Yes, I know what film is.
No, a thesis.
Quang.
Quang.
No, it's not a thesis.
With an interpreter saying, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
I'll tell you this, Bobby Walker,
We were talking about the creativity of calling a giant the Giant, but fuck me sideways. What kind of a name was Quang, eh?
Yeah, what's the sound of 300 pounds of shit hitting the canvas?
One of which
Quang.
is a seasoned veteran, the other a rookie. And the rookie now, hard work Bobby Walker in the corner. Both men, you can bet, will be
I've got to say,
at the Great American Bash.
He tried to land on his feet off a monkey flip. Oh, now
he's botching everything.
Oh, it's a nightmare for Bobby Walker.
Yeah, they're trying to present him as like this light heavyweight prospect, and a little bit of his look and the attempts to walk the ropes are reminding me of what we'd get a few years later out of one of my low-key favourites in the dying days of WCW, one primetime Elix Skipper. Although Elix Skipper was much better with the aerials. I mean, you'll remember when he walked the cage in TNA. That was fantastic.
We're talking about Dean Malenko.
Nah, he's a guy who would have been. I mean, he was also in TNA, but if WCW carried on, I think Prime Time would have been not like a main eventer, but he would have had a great time.
How does he do in your Effusion WCW?
Oh, obviously, well, my first move is that the Triple X stable that we did see in TNA comes about a lot sooner. 2001 WCW, obviously, you'd expect guys like Christopher Daniels to get some work. You'll remember Daniels showed up on one of the last Nitros. Him and Michael Modest got destroyed by Scott Steiner. And I had Daniels and low-key wrestle here and there, but then they actually ended up costing the Cruiserweight champion at the time. You remember Shane Helms won the belt before WWE bought the company, and they actually cost it in a bit of a shock to Skipper. And that's the formation of Triple X. I think I gave Jason Jett a cup of coffee because he showed up at the end of the real though, so he was also easy money.
He was good.
You worked with him in Britain, didn't you?
Yeah, he did. He did one show for FWA. Yeah, they brought him over. He was
good. So yeah, Jason Jett got a cup of coffee with it. Skipper won it back. That made him a 3-time champion total, and then he was the man to mint AJ Styles at Starrcade 2001.
And you got to hand it to Brad Armstrong. He wants a shot at
also on the David Arquette documentary, they have the famous photo of him walking out with the belt round his shoulder that we have used as a cover shot for this very podcast.
That we made famous, you could argue.
Absolutely. Oh, Bobby Walker's going up to the ropes again. Oh, and he slips again. Fucking hell.
Oh, this is.
Oh my God! Now he's trying. I don't know if that was trying to be a top rope. I don't know if that was meant to be a top rope sunset flip, but he ended up basically headbutting Brad Armstrong.
No, I think he was definitely going for the blockbuster there, but even then, yeah, it was very ugly.
Oh, blockbuster, yeah. But that, oh my God.
I tell you what, considering how we talk about, well, you mostly talk about how professional Brad Armstrong is, but you'll notice he wasn't laying particularly aesthetically pleasing for that pin, was he? So that makes me think that he wasn't selling, he's probably done his nose or his jaw in with that.
Yeah, you can see as he's leaving the ring, he's like checking his nose.
Because a pin, if you're pinning Brad Armstrong, normally it'll look a lot better.
Yeah,
because that was why you guys in the industry admired him so much.
Yeah, and also it's notable that there's no replay there of the finish.
Yeah, and they went straight to the wide cam as well, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you go to the top rope and you screw it up, then I guess going up to the top rope again to kind of exercise those demons is the best way of doing things, but obviously you don't want to then slip on the ropes again.
But it's easy to see why he didn't become a thing, because that was not a good first impression.
You could see him at the end of the match there, he smacked his fist on the ropes before the crowd looking happy with the win. You could see he was happy. And here now comes Lord Stephen Regal with Jeeves, and he looks very unhappy with the crowd.
Depending on whether or not he can I don't know. I don't know how to handle this one.
And that music can only mean one person, Liam.
The Macho Man, Randy Savage.
Yeah, just looking up Bobby Walker, and he was part of that lawsuit in 2000-2001, where Sonny Ono and co claimed that Caucasian opponents were instructed to make him look bad. And I think you can agree from watching that match, there was nothing Brad Armstrong could have done to have salvaged that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
he didn't do anything wrong.
Talking about that one match in isolation, Bobby Walker did everything there to make himself look bad, unfortunately, because it was very unfortunate that he slipped off the ropes not once but twice. But yeah, for a big Nitro debut, that would have absolutely killed his confidence. Poor guy.
Yeah, he was also due to be in Battle Bowl, but he was attacked by Lex Luger and replaced by Diamond Dallas Page. So his absence led to the slot that allowed DDP to win.
Okay, so we've now got Regal against Alex Wright. So now I was going to say these two would know each other from Europe, but actually they wouldn't, because Wright wouldn't have debuted as a wrestler in Germany before Regal came over to WCW. But Regal will be very familiar with his father, Steve Wright, English wrestler who then based himself over in Germany, hence Alex Wright's rather English sounding name.
Yeah, and obviously you can make plenty of England versus Germany references here.
Indeed, although it would be, well, I guess it would be lost on the commentators and it's not going to get mentioned. Whereas, yeah, absolutely, if this was in the UK, it would be mentioned. An age-old sporting rivalry, putting all political events from many generations ago aside. But yeah, it's always been
and political events where most of the fans think it only involved their country.
Very young athlete. A man who shows a lot of promise.
Not to say that the Southern United States fans are historically, educationally challenged or anything. Far be it from me.
Now this is this just seems to me to be a very low-key second hour of Nitro. Given the style of wrestling, given the people on there.
Well, we did do our detective work earlier, didn't we? And we theorised that Raw went up against the first hour. I mean, I don't even know if that is definitely the case, but looking at the evidence, surely.
Speaking of uninvited, we got to do it anyway. There's a break coming up, but we'll be right back. Hang in.
And big dive over the ropes onto the floor by Wright. He cleared the ropes clean.
I don't know what Heenan and Bischoff were saying on the mics as we went to break there.
What's going to happen with this other guy, Heenan said, and Bischoff said, I don't know. So whether they're talking about, that's like talking about Scott Hall or what?
Yeah, it must have been, because it would have been strange to have picked that up otherwise.
Yeah,
you wouldn't associate Heenan and Bischoff with not knowing their time cues of when to talk and when not to talk.
Yeah.
Oh, Glacier's coming.
I'd heard the rumours.
Coming your way, and hey, I want to take this opportunity to say a good hello to a good fan, a viewer, regular viewer of WCW, Dave Reddicoff, out in Washington.
So I've got no idea who the shout out that Bischoff's giving that to.
It sounded like Dave Rentacott, which is a fantastic name.
Yes.
Oh, in fact, Heenan just said the same joke. Rentacott, or Retacott. And Heenan's now just making traffic cop jokes.
Yeah, that's him sorted for the next half an hour.
Yeah.
Alex Wright from Germany. Easy for him to fire back with one of his own. Fires back with two.
Beautiful leg trick from Regal.
Drop toe hold takedown. And into a crossface.
Kind of a modification of a drop toe hold.
Yeah, unsurprisingly though, the grounding of this and the unique style these two bring to the ring has definitely brought the crowd down a little bit. You don't really want to see this go too long, this match, given the pace of the show. And
now, it could very well be that this match has been, with this style, has been placed here to bring the crowd down and let them go to the loo and get a drink and all that stuff, so that they're ready and they're in their seats for the main event, which I'm presuming is going to be up next between Sting and Scott Steiner.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't drag too long though, because that won't reflect on these two very well anyway. You just don't want them. You don't want to see wrestlers like this be put in a particular death spot. But if they are just going to slow the pace down for 5 minutes, then give us a good finish, then fair enough. Regal patronising the referee.
I know what the rules are. Classic, reminds me of Leon Harris, who was the wrestling name of Brian Glover when he worked over in the UK here. And yeah, he would often, in that broad Yorkshire accent of his, I know the rules, referee. Especially against the likes of Les Kennett.
And obviously you could see the influence from those sort of people on Bryan Danielson in his, or Daniel Bryan now in his independent days, because he did the running gag of I have till 5 referee, didn't he, in the corner?
Yeah. Oh yeah, when Bryan Danielson came over to the UK, he was obviously a superb technical wrestler, but the character and the charisma wasn't there. And they basically stuck him on the holiday camps. And I remember talking with him when he first arrived in the UK about it, and just telling him what to expect and what they're all about. And for overseas listeners who aren't familiar with holiday camps, it is basically essentially it's like if you imagine a prison camp, you're just shut in the venue, but everything you need is there, from your food to your entertainment, from morning, noon and night. And one of the entertainments that they have in most holiday camps is wrestling, and people that are there aren't necessarily wrestling fans, and you have to work so hard to get this captive audience to engage with what you're doing, because they're not necessarily fans. And he never looked back.
Yeah, I mean, as a big fan of early Ring of Honor, I remember he was always turning out amazing matches in Ring of Honor, like he did most other places. But the difference between Danielson in those first couple of years, where he was one the founding fathers, one those big indie names like with Loki and Daniels and CM Punk and AJ Styles to put them on the map. Difference between those early years and then when he had the run with the Ring of Honor title in 2006, when he really was the complete package.
Yeah.
You can see that's when that personality come in, but it's just funny you relay those stories and we see Regal, who we know has a direct influence on Danielson, and you can see where that, it's one thing to see Daniel Bryan use a bit of the European style. We see lots of wrestlers influenced by that, but then you see where the sass comes from, and that really puts a smile on my face.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at Regal from Blackpool, and a 3 count, and Regal wins the match. I was going to say Regal from Blackpool, the capital city of cheesy British seaside holidays, and no wonder he's so fantastic at that.
We say that and we praise Regal, and yet he's done something with a finish of that match that really upset me. He has reeled off from the babyface Alex Wright in the corner. He's tripped him by 2 feet in the corner, and instead of doing the obvious, he has actually just gone and done a pretty straightforward roll through. A very good wrestling move to pin him. But look, he's held on there, he's gone down. Why are Regal's feet not going up on the top rope?
Wright was a little bit too far away from the corner, I think.
I would have loved to have seen it. That is one of my favourite heel moves. Especially from such a desperate situation where you basically just had to shrug them off in the corner or trip up their legs.
But anyway, right now, Jeeves has got to go to run back and get changed into his Wildcat Willie costume.
But the one thing that the fans bring out to me is
he's now with Mean Gene in the middle of the ring.
Who had to change his pants after seeing Woman.
you have some adverse feelings toward us.
Listen to me, you miserable little toad. You telling me how to act my life is like Quasimodo telling somebody how to bloody walk straight.
Regal
Well,
straight on
Regal's
Gene's
not
case.
happy
Now I have your
with Mean
attention.
Gene
It's
asking
Memorial
him what
Day.
he thinks of
My father
Americans.
will be so pleased I beat Junior Adolf there.
Just called him Junior
got
Adolf there.
To think
The
of how
world
uncomfortable
champion
you
in
got
WCW.
when I was making
There's a bloody
jokes
escapee
revolving
from
the
Barnum
war,
Baileys.
and Regal just
We've
goes
got
and
bloody
it was a
Savage
different
running
time.
round
It was a
thinking he's
different
some
time.
kind of hard man. If you didn't notice, 2 weeks ago,
Junior
I put the toughest man in wrestling out of the bloody game. Then
2 weeks ago, I
we've
put the
got somebody
toughest
from
man in
another
wrestling out of the game.
organisation.
Who's he talking
That's
about?
referencing the parking lot
Don't
brawl
forget
with Finley,
who's
isn't it?
in with
Finley,
it, sunshine.
right.
Because I'm going nowhere, and it's time I had my bloody say in what goes on around here.
And I think they're trying to raise his profile a bit because I'm well aware of who he faces at next pay-per-view. So they are giving him a bit of a, they're giving him a bit of a short push here.
Who does he face at the next
Sting.
time?
I
Oh,
was always a big fan of Sting and Regal at the Great American Bash. But that's why they're giving him
probably
a,
having coverage, isn't it?
yeah, they're giving him a bit of a higher profile here, a bit of mic
I'm
time.
going to make a statement, a challenge if you wish, to the man they call the franchise.
Oh, here we go, straight to
I
it.
beat this man and you, Mr. Sting.
Yeah,
I hope you're
challenging
listening.
Sting.
I will then be held within some esteem here and maybe get a shot at this bloody circus freak that we have as a champion.
Calling the
I want
giant
that
a
painted
bloody
face, bloody
circus
clown.
freak.
Right in this
Thank you
room as
very
soon
much.
as possible.
Take it to the championship committee.
Yeah, you could. He might not have the big booming projection of most professional wrestlers, but you can never accuse Regal of not being good on the mic. That was fantastic, and he didn't lose a beat either. Super confident in that whole thing. Hilarious.
Well, I mean, Regal as well, if you follow him on Twitter, he is a big fan of old school British comedy, which is where a lot of that delivery and a lot of those one-liners were influenced from.
Yeah, but as the one thing, if you could change, would be the. It's just like you see, Gene had to keep following him with the mic.
Yeah.
And the project, if you and you've no doubt done this in your experience in commentating and doing promos for wrestlers as a manager, is you work on your projection. It's one thing to speak with confidence, and it's another thing to speak where you emphasise the right points and you make sure everything is able to be heard, even with a microphone. Other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed that monologue from Regal. He was like a machine gun on the put-downs, wasn't he?
Yes. So Scott Steiner has come out looking absolutely fucking enormous, bigger than we've seen him before, I think, it's safe to say, and not smiling, not looking in any way happy. Sting has now gone to Flair's table, shaking hands with the busboy, and the bellboy, I should say, and helped himself to, I don't know what it was, some grapes or something.
Sting action figures in the front row.
And you talk about a physical contact.
So we've got one half of the World Tag Team Champions in Sting against one half of arguably the most famous tag team in WCW right now. Are you anticipating the same shenanigans that I'm anticipating?
Yeah, potentially. We've started with a handshake, and that camera shot of the handshake did allow me the first proper view of what you pointed out earlier, that Scott Steiner has definitely been drinking his orange juice.
He's fucking enormous. Look at the traps popping out of his neck.
I'll give Scott Steiner credit. I don't think he's ever gone on record to deny taking steroids, has he?
No. Do you remember the
we've referenced
famous
it before, yeah, with Triple H.
Triple H, the famous story that they asked him to take a drug test, and he said, "Sure, get Triple H to pick me up in a limo, and we'll go together." And they never asked him again.
Never at any one point did he ever say, "No, I don't take steroids." But yeah, obviously. We live in this taboo society where it's suicidal to admit that you did, unless someone manages to find your prescription on a website and waves it in front of your face. And even then, the likes of Ken Anderson will still try and fucking deny it.
Been around the world Steiner, Scott Steiner.
It was him, wasn't it? I don't want to be throwing that at you, but he was definitely one of those on the. Remember the post Benoit signature wellness scandal? Do you remember?
Well, Regal was one of them. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
but
sure.
Anderson was the one
few.
who got belligerent and tried to keep denying it and dug a deeper hole.
I can't remember.
Which I think, I know there was all that talk when he was released less than a year later about messing up a spot with Randy Orton. I would like to think that's not enough to get. I always had the feeling that when he did that, just absolute botched backfire of an attempt at being a flag waving PR. I would like to think that they're thinking, right, first excuse we get rid of him.
Yeah, now interesting move there from Sting. He basically went up to the middle rope from the corner, and whereas normally the guy will twist around and do a cross body block, he just dived backwards blind and went with his back into the front of Scott Steiner and knocked him down. So that's either something went a bit wrong, or these guys do know each other well, obviously. Either that or like utmost trust in your opponent.
I've seen a couple of wrestlers try and do that, and they usually lead with the elbow. It's supposed to be like a back elbow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas most wrestlers prefer to turn with the elbow.
Yes. There's a guy in Mexico, Aerostar, who basically does a quadrada moonsault without the actual moonsault, but he literally just jumps off the ropes and flies backwards onto his opponent.
Yeah.
One of those things, it looks tremendous, but as I said, you have to have total, complete trust in your opponent.
Ted DiBiase was another one. Ted DiBiase used to do it, but he'd have a Ric Flair success rate.
Yes.
That was literally how he'd always start the babyface comeback, is he tried a blind elbow.
The blind back elbow off the middle rope that he only ever hit in squash matches against the jobbers on the challenge.
Which is good, because I think you've got to be able to hit it in a televised capacity somewhere, otherwise it just looks horrible, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're like, why'd you still do that, you fucking moron?
In fact, I would like to think that Ric Flair in a squash match would land a move off the top rope.
Well, that is a fair point. When people talk about how weekly televised matches can lack a bit of storytelling, and we don't really have many squash matches anymore. I think the two are tired of each other. I really believe if we could get a few squash matches back in rotation, we don't want a TV show full of them, but as we've seen with this show, it's a good way to showcase some of your wrestlers sometimes if they've not got anything to do. Yeah, you establish some moves, and then it's a big deal when they try it and it gets kicked out of or they miss it in a competitive match.
But he's watching, believe me.
It's an underrated part of the missing. Yeah.
Steiner got a 2 count. But yes, I know what you mean. When I was booking, I did like a squash match. I did like building people up with squashes.
Well, maybe not that family.
Doing the slow burn with things.
Yeah, a lot of wrestlers
now going for an STF.
Yeah, he's busting out the moveset here, and that was kind of the point I was going to make. Actually, is that in squash matches, wrestlers were able to show off a bit of a moveset, and obviously a lot of wrestlers had one finisher that was protected, but they were still able to dust off some big moves. Think of Scott Hall's belly to back superplex, and he'd absolutely waste jobbers with it. I don't know if he ever got the pin with it because he had the razor's edge, but he would basically hit that superplex, and the razor's edge would be a formality afterwards. He'd just hoist up the weight and add that, to the point where if he hit the superplex against Bret Hart, and Bret Hart sells it as only Bret Hart can, you're like, oh fuck, how's he going to go up from this? The razor's edge is going to happen, and that's it. And then he'd wriggle out the razor's edge, or we'd get a 2 count and get his shoulder up from the superplex. Like, oh wow! And it resonates.
Because you'd seen the thing with getting things over in wrestling. It's incredibly simple, and people overcomplicate it. And it's the same with a catchphrase, with an entrance, with whatever. It's about doing the same thing over and over and over again until people get conditioned to it. It's imagine if Ric Flair changed his entrance music every single week. it wouldn't work. But with Flair on this show, the moment you heard the opening notes of Also Sprach Zarathustra, you know Ric Flair is coming out, because it's the same music that he comes out to time and time again, and it conditions you to it. And that's how you do things in wrestling.
And you'll remember a very green Chris Masters got the full Nelson massively over. Scorpion Death Drop. But Sting can't cover.
Referee now beginning to count both men.
And there's nothing wrong with bringing a full Nelson hold back. It's not like people saying, oh yeah, the full Nelson's a finisher in a day where everyone's doing some sort of DDTs. No, if a guy the size of Chris Masters puts you in a full Nelson, yeah, you're toast. And that was a point Paul Heyman made on Stone Cold's podcast, wasn't it? Like that he could get Mark Henry over with a side headlock finisher.
Yes.
Because Mark Henry putting you in a headlock and then putting the effects on and the body language that he's putting all of his strength behind it. Oh, here comes Luger.
Oh, here's Luger.
What is
you
the
know
deal?
what's going to happen next? With Lex Luger and the Steiner brothers. Because the crowd are barking, which means, yep, here comes Rick Steiner. Dressed very curiously, but let's leave that there.
Heenan's chance to make a joke about Rick's intelligence.
Let these two athletes fight it out in the ring.
So earlier on, we saw Sting hit a Stinger splash. Scott didn't sell it too much. Sting then whipped him back into the buckles, went for a second Stinger splash, which telegraphed that he'd miss it, which he did. And then we had a dragon suplex from Steiner and a belly-to-belly suplex for a 2 count. And the crowd, I don't know, they don't seem to be into this as much as I would think, because these two are really pulling out the stops. They're busting out some really big boots.
Yeah, Scott just did the Super Samoan drop that he loves, and it didn't get a reaction, which is a shame.
He's now given the signal for the Frankenstein, and that has got a response from the crowd. But Sting holds on to the ropes, and he's now going for a Scorpion, because Scott went up
The
for
ropes
it.
right there, though. Straight in the ropes.
And a clean break.
Should have turned him the other way. I mean, he's only doing this, 15 years at this point.
Gotta start ripping at his eyes, tearing at an ear, pulling his hair. Keep him down, keep stomping him. Don't let him loose.
Tombstone. Oh, these two do love a tombstone reversal spot. I remember when they did that at Super Brawl 1, Dean.
Yes.
I watched too much WCW. I'm sorry, everyone. Well, who am I apologising to? You are here because I watched too much WCW.
Heenan just did something that I think is a cardinal sin in commentary. He made a joke saying that Sting dropped Steiner on his head, so it probably didn't hurt him, but he said it during a pinfall attempt.
Yeah, make that joke afterwards. Yeah.
Yes. Now, the thing I've always been taught, and I always abide by it, is when someone is making a pinfall attempt, you don't talk about anything other than the pinfall attempt, because otherwise you're telling the crowd, this isn't going to be the finish, or don't worry about this, or don't worry about this move. And Luger and Sting and Scott Steiner are sort of jockeying for position on a suplex, and Lex Luger interfered, and now Rick Steiner and Lex Luger are brawling at ringside.
And this is another flashback of Super Brawl 1, because this is the tag title match.
So right now we've got both Steiner brothers beating up Lex Luger, and as soon as Luger fires back, that is interference against a legal competitor, I guess. So at that point, Nick Patrick rings the bell, and now the crowd are reacting, and a load of the dressing room are now emptying out to separate them.
I mean, you'd think Sting and Luger had enough on their plate with Regal and the Giant set up for the bash.
Let him go, let him fight. What the heck? This is Nitro.
Oh, it's Jarrett. Is that Jarrett? No.
No.
It's not Jarrett. He was.
No, he wasn't. He looks a lot like him. And Jarrett still had long hair at this point.
Yeah.
But it does look like Chosen One Jeff Jarrett, doesn't it?
Jeff Jarrett
Alright,
is time
this one is
traveling
thrown
and has
out.
landed in Nitro in '96.
I
So
tell
that's
you
why
what,
he said slap nuts a lot.
mayhem
That was his
here at the end
password
of the
to start
night.
time traveling.
And like
To
I
the
said
portal,
hours ago,
yeah.
these guys had to be considered some of the closest friends around. And tonight, it just breaks down here. Heenan, I don't know what to make of it, man.
So that's a lot of fingers in a lot of pies for Sting and Luger. Because they don't have the tag titles anymore at this point, do they?
Don't they? I thought they did.
Well, Luger only showed off the TV title making his
He did.
entrance.
Oh, and here comes Scott Hall.
You wanted your say.
Kendall, you got such a big mouth.
Calling Bischoff Ken Doll.
We are sick of it.
What do you mean, who's we?
You know who.
Says,
And
we are sick of it.
this
You know
is
who.
where the big boys play. What a joke.
See, I love that it's
I tell you
playing
what,
into all the comments he was
go
making
tell
about the
Billionaire
taped
Ted,
Raws.
you tell
Because
him
that is what the trigger
get
is here,
3
isn't it?
of his very, very best. Maybe
So he's told
maybe
Billy
the
Dare Ted to get
Nacho
3 of his best. He's mentioned the Nacho Man.
No. Hey, maybe you get the Stinger.
Mentioned Sting,
Ooh, I'm so scared.
all with a very bad Spanish accent.
You go get anybody you want.
He's
because
kind of
we-
called 2 of the actual
we-
3 members
we
of the team,
are
isn't he?
taking over. You want to go to war?
It's the first hint of a we rather than
want a
just him
war?
and himself.
Yes,
You
because
got
he's saying about three on
only
3.
let's do it right. In the
You
ring
want a war?
where it matters. Not on no microphones. Not in no
This is the
newspapers
part of May
or
27th that
dirt
gets
sheets.
forgotten about
Let's
easily,
do it in the ring
because obviously the big moment was when he
where
walked
it
down
matters.
earlier,
Yeah,
and
If,
bigger
this
moments
is-
were to
if
come in
Billionaire
future
Ted
weeks.
but
and his
this
big
is the
boys,
more
if they got
significant
any,
promo,
any
isn't it?
guts,
A lot of hints are dropped.
because
The we
are coming
challenging
down
the
here,
ring, making
and
reference to
like it or
Bischoff's
not,
snipes, which is
we
what is
are
the
taking
grounds for the takeover, isn't it?
Yep.
You're out of here. You're out of here.
And also what I don't, Heenan's looking like he can't believe what's happening. But,
It's all very realistic. I love it.
yeah.
See you next week.
Well, you say that, but surely if that was legitimate, you would have had security everywhere, and you wouldn't have had him come out again a second time, because he'd have been lobbed out the venue by now. So I get, obviously you need to
The first
have
time,
have a bit of creative license to be able to do that.
I thought there was a bit weird how he just easily walked through. You think there'd be more security involved, but they were building to that second one. How you could hear we made reference to those little conversations Bischoff and Heenan were having, presumably with producers.
Yeah.
And about, all right, we'll give him time to say something at the.
Oh, that's true. At the end of the show, at the end
And
of
I
the hour.
suppose for this all to work, you just have to believe that the basic premise of how contracts work are non-existent in the kayfabe world, and
Yes.
also they're presumably going on the belief that, well, they kind of want someone of Scott Hall's caliber to show up, but they don't take kindly to his threats.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, they've done a great job there.
No, yeah. I mean, it's. I remember. I remember when this happened, and as soon as, I mean, it took a bit longer for news to break, obviously, in those days, but I remember everyone, the attention of the wrestling world suddenly shifts back to WCW, like it had in September the year before when Nitro launched. But now we had this reasonably even 1 week on, 1 week off, tit for tat ratings war. Now all of a sudden, everyone is tuning into WCW to see what happens next.
Yeah. Well, I've got to say, that pivotal episode, it'd be silly to try and even entertain anything other than a thumbs up, because that was great to watch. I will say this though, I do already miss our breezy 45-minute assignments.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss that era, but we're on to a big era now, and there's going to be a lot of quality coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say overall, as you say, because of the historical significance, because of the quality of the first 45 minutes, that Horseman tag match, the Scott Hall promo, the historical significance, it's a thumbs up. But that second hour for me dragged.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was bad, but yeah, I mean, as we said earlier, the basic old school premise of building Giant and Luger, lifting up big bodies, and I liked a little bit of that. But yeah, there wasn't much else to it. Regal was good on the mic. The main event was unfortunately flat because Sting and Scott Steiner would be a great WCW TV main event. So yeah, it was a very average second hour. Nothing terrible, but yeah, I think drag might be the right word.
Yeah. Over on Raw, just to let you know, because I like to do this, it was a live Raw from Fayetteville, North Carolina. They had King of the Ring qualifying matches. Ultimate Warrior and Goldust had a double count out. Smoking Guns beat Skip and Zip. And then in another King of the Ring qualifying match, Ahmed Johnson fell to defeat for the first time ever in the WWF on TV, at least against Vader. So if we look at what we've got ahead of us next week on Nitro, we have got Big Bubba and John Tenter. I'm guessing the shark gimmick gets dropped. We've got Faces of Fear and High Voltage, Sergeant Craig Pittman v Disco Inferno, Lord Steven Regal and Jim Duggan. So I mean, excuse me, that again, it's not shouting, marquee matches, but I guess this might be, just getting used to a bit of a deeper talent pool. Prince Ikea and Kevin Sullivan, but then we've got Flair and Anderson against the Rock and Roll Express, which should be tremendous.
That should be fun.
Giant defending against Ice Train, Scott Norton against Hugh Morris, and then Sting and Luger against the Steiner brothers.
Well, Luger said he wanted the big wrestlers. I suppose an inflatable Scott Steiner would qualify.
Would qualify, indeed, yes. Right, well, we will leave things there. Thank you ever so much for downloading this episode. Thank you for your patience in the fact that we have been very quiet due to the fact that my health took a turn for the worse. But I'm now reasonably confident that I've kicked COVID's ass. So you can find our entire back catalogue at becausewcw.podbean.com, or indeed from wherever you get your podcasts from. We will be back very shortly. We're talking with a few guests. We're even talking about reviewing a Clash of the Champions, aren't we?
Yeah, so here's what I'm thinking, Dean, if you're up for this. Here we are, content planning live on the air. Because we want to make up for a bit of lost time, there's a certain clash we've been talking about doing, and we were going to try and have a guest on, and we just got to try and figure something out about whether or not I'll be able to guest. But regardless or not, I think you and I should cover very soon the 1991 clash, the clash that everyone, considering what sort of things all of our listeners and guests bring up as being their favourite era of WCW. If we look at that infamous Sting versus Rude clash,
classic.
Let's do that next, and if we can get a guest on with us, happy days. And if not, me and you do it old school style, and we'll get the clash era on this podcast, a new feather on our cap. Well, let's get it done in style, and let's start off by doing that. It will make up for lost time after that gap by doing a quality clash. What'd you say?
I think that's a good idea. Very good idea. Yes, and of course we'll carry on with the Nitro Watchalongs, because I now want, having seen this episode, I am now I'm now wanting to know what happens next, as I'm sure everyone was at the time. So
It's
so,
a
plenty of
golden
stuff.
age for Nitro Watchalongs.
It's a golden age for Nitro Watchalongs, absolutely. So don't forget you can follow us over on Twitter at BecauseWCW or Facebook.com/BecauseWCW. We'll be back very, very soon. So on behalf of Liam, this is me, Dean Ayers, saying thanks for listening, and I'll see you ringside.